Hi, in this lecture, we'll be introducing you guys to the subject data mining. Last few weeks, we were mainly focusing on some basics of mathematics. But today, formally, I introduce you guys to some of the data science definitions, and I think we will try to get an overall picture about what the subject or the domain is all about. In the meantime, I must tell you that we have covered part of the components because if you recall, we covered what are the different data types, how the data growth these days the world is experiencing. We have some idea, but today we'll be use some formal components of the domain, data mining and knowledge discovery. So first thing is that, okay, what is data mining? Here I have splitted the entire definition taken mainly from Wikipedia into several bullet points, and we'll be discussing some of the important items, and some of the items you guys are already familiar with, I guess. The process of extracting and discovering patterns in large data sets. So when we are talking about mining, the first thing come into our mind that people are working in, let's say, remote, far distant places, maybe in some remote part of Africa or maybe Asia or anywhere in the world, and they are away from the general people working underneath the ground. So task they're doing, they are trying to find something crucial for us, meaning the mining is always a difficult task, and the relationship is some of the costly metals you only can find through mining, So mining is kind of finding something important within a big volume of something unimportant, So that's the general idea of the term mining. And here we are talking about in the context of data mining. We will be mainly connecting to when we try to find patterns within large data sets. And I think we already have discussed partly in some part of our discussion. And it involves methods like machine learning, statistics, and database management system. Most of us are familiar with these terms, so I don't want to dig into the deep, but we must acknowledge that the people that are working in database domain are no exception. They are part of our journey. And it is an interdisciplinary field. Computer science, statistics, or maybe many other fields. Those from you who are working on cybersecurity, you might need to deal with your own domain knowledge. Those who are working in bioinformatics, you will have to work with data from your domain, So it's a multidisciplinary field, not just a few. And the overall goal is extracting information from dataset. And when we're trying to find useful information in dataset, it's not that the first we give you some data and you come up with your information. It might also be part of your task. For example, you transform the data in a form so others can take advantage of that, So this is also part of our goal, and we will see moving forward how people all over the world have created resources we will be using in our everyday lives, So it's not just one target goal, And data mining is the analysis step. Again, we have two components in this course. One is the data mining, and the other one is the knowledge discovery in databases. So data mining will lead you to the data discovery process. So the data mining is the analysis steps. And aside from raw data analysis, it also involves the database and data management aspects, as I mentioned. If some of you are already familiar with the database management system, then you are part of the team. And we'll be doing a lot of data processing, because you can connect back to the mining task. Because let's say you are trying to find a diamond in a coal field, because crystal structure is the same, but you have to process your data that will lead you to your goal. Modeling is also an important part, as you will be learning. And whenever you are doing some task, then that will also include some evaluation, because unless you have some evaluation procedure, you cannot measure to which direction you are moving towards, And last but not least, you will also have some post processing of your data, because at the end of the day is not in one goal. You will have multiple sub goals, and that will lead us to discovery of information. That you will use in multiple stages of our everyday lives. In a nutshell, that is the summary of what is data mining. And if I make a summary again, so data mining is the process that will lead you to knowledge discovery, and it may include anything that relates to data processing, modeling, and then finding out a way that puts in a position that can measure that which direction you are moving. And finally, you have to have some tangible output. So let's move to the next part, because here we'll be discussing about the knowledge discovery process models, and mainly this and the following slide. We will covering content from chapter 1 and chapter 2 from data mining and knowledge discovery approach. And here I'll try to explain some important parts of those two chapters. So knowledge discovery process model, we have separated them into two groups. One is coming from the academic research people, and these models were introduced in mid 1990s, and you will find several models coming from several groups of researchers. But here we will be looking at one specific model, that what we call FIRED KDP model, which includes 9 steps, but those steps are not mutually exclusive. They have some overlaps. But the other models, actually, the contents are quite similar. So let's support this specific process model into 9 steps, and we'll go one by one, and you will see that some of the steps are quite familiar to you. The first step is understanding the application domain. So if you are from medical domain, you will have a different approach, and if I am doing some research in natural language processing, then I might have a separate approach. So understanding the application domain is the first step, and then creating a target data. You don't expect as a data scientist that people will come up with clean structured data. So it is you who will guide them that, if you have some unstructured data, then we have to format data in some structured format. Or if someone is asking, we want to kick in a process that we want to store some data that will lead us in future for a knowledge discovery processes. So you will guide them that, you have to store your data in this format. So this is what we are referring to by this point, because you have to have a structure, and that will lead you to some data. So that is creating a target data set. And then the next steps you are familiar with, and we'll be discussing a lot in our coming days: the data cleaning and pre-processing, data reduction and projection. The number 4 step, we will cover more content in the coming days. But as I was saying, that we have to work with oceans of data, and if you want to do some modeling, then you have to reduce your data to a certain level, And why? I think at this point it might not be clear, but as we move forward, I will try to make things clear. Okay, so in step 5, we are talking about choosing a data mining task because a larger problem can be solved by focusing on smaller subparts. And then you have to choose an algorithm because for certain problems, some algorithms work better than the others. At this point, you might say that we don't know much about algorithm, but we will learn that for a specific task. Like for example, you might have heard about large language models. Nowadays, we have a lot of digitized data, so the agent can learn from huge amount of data, and that give that type of model an upper hand. We are talking about a neural network models. So neural network models require huge volume of data. If you are from a medical domain and you say that I don't have much data, maybe a few hundred or few thousand records, then the first instinct would be that okay, we should avoid the neural network models because the neural network models are research hungry. And the seventh step is data mining. That will be our focus. And the eighth and ninth step is interpreting mind patterns and then consolidating discovered patterns. So although you have 9 steps being referenced here, but these are not disjoint steps. Another important point to mention about the KDP models. We have seen KDP model actually has nine steps, but those steps are although sequential, but we don't expect that we'll have everything done starting from understanding the application domain all the way to discovery of patterns in just one iteration. So there we may have multiple iteration within these steps, and this graph actually captures the idea. So you will have input data and you have n steps, but you might go and back between these steps as many times as needed. Step 1 to step n, but you might come back to your previous step and ask questions that whether the steps or the results actually matured enough to move to the next step.